Hello everyone, welcome to my Nature Diaries. I love to draw, I love to paint and make art, and especially I love to do it in my nature diaries or nature journals as you see here. However, sometimes after we make all this art that we're so happy with, we have to then write in these journals, and that can be very intimidating. I know there are many people that seem to have a natural affinity for handwriting and maybe hand lettering, but for the rest of us, this can be a really intimidating process. I am definitely one of those people who do not have a natural affinity for handwriting as much as I like to do it. So I would like to share with you some tips, some tools, and hacks that have helped me be able to feel much less intimidated when I am writing, and I'm hoping that they will help you to not feel as nervous about writing in your journal as well. So let's get started. My first tip is to block out your text space. Text space in your journals are almost important, at least in my mind, as where your paintings are located. Where you place your text can be very creative and engaging to the viewer. With that in mind, I'm going to be using these little squares and rectangles, and you can see all about this process in a previous video, which I will link above. I like using these different shapes as a way to mark the placement, whether it's for a painting or in this case for text, because it gives me a really great visual to see what the composition can look like when it's done. Having this visual gives us confidence to go forth and to be able to start that handwriting and not be intimidated by the process. My next tip is to line your paper. This feels overly simplistic, but it does make a huge difference. I normally like to use rulers, as in this 12-inch ruler here, to be able to line my paper, but sometimes that will interfere with a ring binder in this particular notebook, so this 6-inch ruler is super nice to use, and it's much more portable to carry with you outside as well. You can also use these shapes to use as a straight edge to mark off where your lines are. I would just use a very soft pencil and go ahead and create guidelines using these shapes, especially on the side. Using these guidelines along the side, you can then just kind of eyeball where you want to put your lines in pencil. Now, if that is intimidating, here is another hack and a tool combined together that I discovered. Using a blank 4x6 note card, you can use the lines that are already on there to be able to create a template for your own lines. So using that previous side guideline, what I'm going to do is just at each of those lines, I'm just going to put a dot and mark down where I want my lines and the distance between each line to be. The reason I love this is because I don't have to have a ruler, it's thin, it's portable to carry, and of course I have so many note cards laying around. And then of course you can take that same card and mark on the opposite side, making sure that they line up, but put those dots in there, or those little circles, to mark the lines, and then go ahead and using the top edge of that, use that as another template to mark your writing lines. Doing all this prep work is another way to give us confidence before we start our handwriting. My third tip is to practice to find your best handwriting size. On some blank paper, I went ahead and just drew in lines for large, medium, and small handwriting. And what you were doing by this is trying to figure out where our handwriting kind of goes south. In other words, where do we kind of fall apart, or how small can we write where it doesn't look very good, or it's not legible, or maybe do we have issues when we're trying to draw big? Do we feel like we don't have control? It's just kind of a good way to troubleshoot before we actually sit down and try to draw or write in our journals. Your pen tip sizes are super important because that's going to also affect how well you write. I like to write with really fine tips. However, I find that if I use a fine tip for large writing, I don't seem to write as well. Again, I have found that a larger tip size works better for me when I am trying to write larger letters. However, I have found that my handwriting does start to break down when I try to write very small, and it makes sense because, you kind of lose control. So that's something I discovered by doing this. Taking 10 or 15 minutes to work out some of these issues that you might have really does help so much when we're going to start these longer handwriting sessions. It's going to give us confidence, and that's always something we need in art, no matter what type of art we're doing. These micron pens that I'm using, I want to point out, they have a flat tip to them. And that's another thing you want to think about, because if you are very particular about the angle that you hold your pens or pencils, then you're going to want to make sure that this isn't going to be a deal breaker for you. These micron pens, as much as I like them for archival work, aren't very good for handwriting because you have to hold them in a perpendicular way. Taking the time to find the most perfect pen for our handwriting that has archival ink is really going to be the most important for your journaling. Tip number 4, choose 1 to 3 handwriting fonts or styles. There are so many resources really for us to choose from, including this book that I have here called Handlettering. I bought it used online several years back, but they include these alphabets of different styles of fonts and typefaces. You can also find free alphabets online as well, so make sure to check those out. My main handwriting style I like is just to print very simply. I think simplicity is key here, and to master just one handwriting style can really be a huge help. For my headings, I've also come up with a simple block style that has added serifs or these little flags. We can always add to our handwriting library, but the main point is to make it neat and simple, easy to read, so we can communicate valuable information to our readers. Focusing on just several of these handwriting styles can really help us to accomplish these goals. My next tip here is to simply slow down. Another tip that might feel obvious, but when we are watching so many videos of people producing work, it is difficult to imagine that they are taking their time or writing slowly or making art slowly. Or some people might simply have the ability to be able to write quickly and neatly at the same time. But if that's not you, don't worry about it. To be honest, the neater I have started to write, the slower I have become. And I think it's simply just what our teachers taught us many, many years ago, is that it takes time to do something well. That doesn't mean that we can't increase as we continue to handwrite, but taking our time handwriting really helps us to create focus. Focus is key because I've noticed personally that when my mind begins to wander, I start making mistakes or my writing becomes definitely sloppy. So now what I do is I go back and try to review everything and make sure all of my letters are made complete and there's no gaps in them. And especially I try to go back and make sure everything is legible. Stopping to correct your mistakes or review your work is another way to gain focus because it's helping you to make sure your writing is staying consistent. Here's a few more tools and hacks for you that might help you be more confident in your journal. First one is just using stamps. If the idea of creating headers in your own handwriting feels a little overwhelming, why not invest in stamps like these acrylic ones here? Even if you want to include your own handwriting samples eventually with headers, these are a fun way to supplement your art journal, I think, in general. The disadvantages of these are they can be expensive up front to buy, and in this case you can see I need to really buy 2 packs for these because I ran out of letters, so your cost can be a factor. And also, it's quite a bit of stuff to carry around if you like to journal in a portable way. However, what you can do is if you're journaling somewhere else without your stamps, just leave a header space as long as you know the size of your stamps, so you can go ahead and add these to your journal later. Another hack or tool can be stickers. Why not use some stickers to at least maybe use as your cover page like I did for this little traveler-sized journal. The advantages of these that they are portable. You can put them in with all of your journals and have something that is very quick and easy that you can even add to with your own art and handwriting if you want as well. While stamps can be expensive, I think if you have even just a few, they can be a really nice addition and add header space or titles to any of your journals. Alphabet stickers can be another creative supplement to your journal. Stencils are another way that you can supplement your handwriting or replace it in your journals. This little stencil especially is portable and would be great if you're nature journaling outside. I would suggest practicing with them and using a pencil and then going over with ink, but I think you might find that you enjoy using something like this. And if you don't have them, or maybe you do have one and you haven't used it, you may want to give it a try and see how you like using it in any of your nature journals. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to leave me a comment, subscribe, and share this video. And also follow me over on Instagram at my_nature diaries for more nature art. These are just a few ideas to help you get started and get over that intimidation factor of handwriting, and I hope they helped. Remember that they are tools to help you, and also remember you're amazing and creative. Bye.